Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshua Idehen, and this is Fail Better. And on this week, we have Selina Nwulu, a writer, essayist, and social researcher. This is a weekly poetry broadcast discussing how best to use failure as a catalyst for change, as a way to move forward. And we love connecting with our old and new friends to discuss these important, weighty issues, which is why we got these amazing poets to entertain you for 15 minutes. Right? And after that, we've got a Twitter conversation for 45. If you head over to Twitter and use the hashtag FeelBetterPINC, that's hashtag FeelBetterPINC. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to be informed about forthcoming episodes. Sit back, chillax, wash your hands, pick up your favorite kitchen utensil, and dig into some top-notch poetry because that's what you're getting.
Hello, my name is Selina Nwulu, and I am going to share some poems with you whilst you eat your dinner. And so I'm hoping to keep you in good company. And I'm going to be reading some poems around climate change and isolation, which, spoiler alert, is very, very relevant for the moment we're living in. And it's been interesting to reread some of the poems that I've written on this topic, and really understand them in the context of now. And I really do think it holds extra resonance, this idea of our isolation and our disconnection. It holds extra resonance for this moment we're all in. I thought I would also just put some books that I'm kind of reading at the moment or just mulling over, in case anybody wants to reach out and talk about them, whether you've read them or thinking about reading them. I'm always happy to chat. And there's this one. Oh, what? That's my book. Cheeky little plug. The Secrets I Let Slip, which is here too, which I will put back under Steve. Yeah. So, yeah, this idea of climate change and disconnection is something that I write about quite a lot. I think to think about climate change and creating work around climate change is often quite an overwhelming thing. But the way I look at it and think about it is through the lens of connection and disconnection. So climate change and the climate crisis really being a mirror to our disconnection to ourselves, disconnection to each other, and disconnection to nature, to the land. And so, when I come at it from that position, it feels far more of a fruitful and interesting place creatively than the often rigid and dry language that can exist around climate change. And so I want to, share some examples with you tonight. So the first poem I'm going to read is called We Have Everything We Need, because I think quite a lot about what climate change looks like in cities. We often, I think, in cities thrive off a sense of self-sufficiency, non-stop action, and I think that's why this kind of time has humbled us in particular in cities, because it shows us we're not in control. And so often in this climate of non-stop action, always on the go, it's hard for us to find language around our loneliness and our isolation, because we're constantly being told we have everything we need, or at least have all the means to acquire everything we need. And so perhaps that's where some of the grief around this time comes into play, because we don't have the language to express the depths of our loneliness, our disconnection. It's also about living in these kind of crowded spaces, so it feels particularly relevant if you can hear cars outside and stomping in my flat, because I can't find a quiet moment unless I do this in the middle of the night. But so please just this is all adding to the tone, to the mood. Let's look at it that way. This is called We Have Everything We Need. We have each become a small world, spinning from one collision to another. We scrub cities off our skins and watch its roads leave tracks in the bath. Damp rises, rent rises, high rises. Look how the city silhouettes grow new forests for us. What new constellation of stars guides us home? We are tower block light flickers come evening, crammed into shoe boxes, basements, living room come bedrooms. Stretch out our feet to turn the TV on. We reach for our phones, our faces made radiant by its bird song. Someone somewhere is mining for the next iPhone, but we can't be sure. We are compassion in 280 characters. We are lying lonely next to each other between paper-thin walls. We know our neighbours' shouts and moans, an echo chamber of coughs and scrapes. Rent rises, heat rises, sea rises. Put the kettle on. Scold dinner in microwaves. Droughts happening somewhere, but we can't be sure. Tesco fluorescents, open 24 hours. I wonder what this will all look like in 50 years' time. How will our cities exhale then? How will we wear our loss? How will we sleep when we cannot turn our alarm clocks off? So the next poem I want to share with you, really its starting point is a relatively new word called Solastalgia. I don't know if you've heard of that word before, but I'm interested in how our language changes as our experiences change, and I think that's also a really good invitation for creatives to be creating new terms of reference, new language, new words that really do express, you know, the nuances of our experiences. And so I think that's what this word does, solastalgia, which is a form of homesickness when a person's natural environment has been irreparably changed. So what is our relationship to place after the flood, after the wildfire, after the drought? And so I wanted to think about that and to think again about our disconnection and how our loss maybe can aid some form of connection or reconnection to place. So this is called solastalgia. What solace can be found from living in a crumbling skeleton? Ghost towns and villages that have lost their skins to the atmosphere. It is grief that will turn us into living memorials of our fallen landscapes. Given we do not yet have words for the eulogy, we might well embody our loss. Like this, we will become a drought when there is no clean water, our skin parched like abandoned land, faces dull and ready for wildfire. When the crops fail, our limbs will wilt like stalks giving up, our hair imitate the weeds. It is perhaps the earthquakes that will crack open our chests, help us understand how we, the living, show love in the aftershocks. So the next poem I'm going to read is called Trees, and I wrote this around the time that the Amazon was on fire. So what was that, a year ago? I feel like, what is time anymore? I can't quite get a grasp of it. But I wanted to take something that felt so big and just so unmanageable, even in my mind to comprehend, and to juxtaposition it with something very, very singular in a way, and in that way somehow try and understand the situation. So this is called Trees. The Amazon rainforest is on fire, and I have never felt so small, my hands so useless. James burns weed in the bottom of a pipe. An aerial view turns bud into a congregation of trees. I cannot understand fire this way. Raging kamikaze. Forest lush, stripped into charred anguish. I watch its glow. How fire withers leaves into quills disintegrating to soot. An inhale heavy set in his lungs. A pillar of smoke dead in my face. And so I'm just going to read one more for you, which, I think for as much as I try and write about disconnection, the goal is always to get to connection. And so this next poem I think is a really important reminder for me, because I find it much easier to write about painful things than happy things. If you commission me to write a poem about love, that's going to be far more complicated for me than a breakdown of some kind, which again is interesting. Why is that? I think it's part of the role of the creatives to be forging new futures, to be visioning new futures and using those creative abilities to be able to do that. So that's not necessarily what this does, but I think this poem, but I think what I'm trying to do is to just acknowledge the importance of connection, and to hold that up. So this is called Everything is Everything, and I wrote this poem as part of a series. I was doing a project with Wellcome Trust, thinking about climate change, social justice and food, and this is kind of the end of the series really, but again speaks to this idea of interconnection. And I found this quote by Dr. Vandana Shiva, who is amazing. That's also a book I'm going to put on my shelf and put here. What book am I reading at the moment? Who Really Feeds the World. That's a great book. If I wasn't going to bring down my whole shelf with me, I would put that on this pile. But anyway, the quote that she says is, "Everything is connected. The idea that everything is this hard matter, unrelated to each other, is still guiding a lot of science, old patriarchal stuff. The real science is the science of interconnection, of non-separation, that everything is related." Right? It's pretty good, no? So anyway, this poem. My mother taught me that one hand washes the other, two dancers moving instinctively into the shape of each other, fingers mirroring and intertwining underwater. So then, let us understand how we all move together, how a seed has to know the soil to become itself, the way many crops only ripen into bud when a bee seeks them. The rain must come, as must the sun, the weather offering a lesson in what it means to persevere in both shadow and in light. All this, tended by a farmer's wisdom, learning just when to sow, rear, pluck. We are eating from a whole world, and we, once a seed, return back to the earth, giving life to the soil, and who knows what might grow in our memory. And so I want to leave that point really with you, this idea of connection. I think I keep on calling it this time, this moment. It feels far more softer than the reality, so forgive me for that, but I think that's my coping mechanism. This moment is it shows us that we are so interconnected, even though our politics, our language, our ways of living have tried to tell us otherwise. We are infinitely connected in this time. We're sharing our lives together, and I think that has to be a starting point. to do something better and different moving forward, that we're connected, and my life affects your life and your life affects my life, and we have to remember that. And so that's what I want to leave with you. And if you're feeling lonely at the moment, and if you're isolated, and a physical loneliness and an emotional loneliness, like in restaurants where there's a big table and everybody has to eat together, and it's a bit awkward and you just want to chat with your friend, but you're on this big table and you're kind of together but you're not. At least for now, let this moment, specific moment as opposed to moment, just be, a cosmic form of that. We're all in this space right now, and so you're not alone. And you never are alone. We're all always connected. And so that's what I want to leave you with. I hope you've enjoyed these poems, and I'm happy to chat about them. So please do reach out if you want to chat, and we can talk books and we can talk poems or whatever. But thank you for listening. I really appreciate that, and take care.
And that was that. Now head over to Twitter to carry on the conversation using the hashtag FailBetterPINC. Drop us a line about how failure has helped your lives in positive and negatives and general ways. Head over to our Patreon if you like what we're doing. Become a subscriber and support us. Support poetry in the city. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be informed about forthcoming episodes.